I donated my kidney to save my husband's life, but he didn't even visit me in the hospital. Now he's leaving me for another woman, and I have a surprise for him. I've been with my now ex-husband, let's call him Brad, for 7 years. We met in college, and at first, things were pretty great. We shared a lot of laughs, adventures, and mutual respect. Fast forward to a few years into our marriage, and things weren't exactly sunshine and rainbows. There was the occasional tension, the ups and downs that come with any relationship. But honestly, nothing I didn't think we could work through. Then, the life or death moment happened. Brad was diagnosed with kidney failure. It hit him hard. He was exhausted, constantly in and out of the hospital, and it became clear that without a transplant, his life was at serious risk. Of course, being the good wife I saw myself as, I decided I'd do whatever it took to save him. No second guessing, no hesitation. I was ready to be the hero. I got tested to see if I was a match, and guess what? Turns out I was. A perfect match. Now, let me tell you, donating a kidney isn't exactly a walk in the park. I had to go through weeks of medical evaluations, endless scans, and that whole, you're about to have major surgery, are you sure you're mentally and physically prepared for this? Talk from the docs. But I was like, yeah, cool, let's do it. Fast forward to the day of the surgery. The doctors are hyping me up. The nurses are being super sweet, telling me how brave I am. Even Brad was in tears. The man, who normally wasn't great with emotions, had a sappy Instagram post ready to go, captioned something like, "My wife, my hero, my everything. She saved my life. I love you more than words can express." Honestly, I was feeling like a literal angel. I was like, wow, look at me. I'm basically Mother Teresa at this point. Saving lives, being selfless. What a queen. But in my heart, I knew Brad would owe me forever. So I wake up from the surgery, groggy, tired, but honestly expecting a little more fanfare than I was getting. You know, something like Brad holding my hand, tears streaming, whispering sweet nothings about how I'm his literal savior. But no, I blinked a few times, stared at my hospital room, and crickets. Day 1, no Brad. I texted him. Me. Hey, everything okay? Haven't seen you yet. Brad. Yeah, just tired. We'll visit later. Later. Never came. Day 2 rolled around and I tried again. Hey Loki, can you come? I really want to see you. Brad. I'm resting at home. Let me know if you need anything. Resting at home? Seriously? While I was in the hospital? Recovering? Trying not to barf from all the meds and hospital food? At this point, I'm beyond confused. I mean, this is Brad, the guy who literally owes me a kidney. Where's the "I'd be nothing without you" speech? Where's the gratitude? Where's the "I'll never leave your side" energy? My nurse even asked me, "Did your husband leave the country or something?" And honestly, I felt that. Like, was he off fighting dragons in another dimension? No, apparently he was just resting at home. By day 3, I had it. I called him out. Me. Brad, why aren't you here? I gave you a kidney. You could at least visit. Brad, I'll be there soon. I just needed some time. Yeah, sure. Honestly, it wasn't like I was expecting a grand parade or anything, but a visit, a simple show of support, a moment to show that what I did actually mattered. Nope, nada, zilch. The thing is, I wasn't just some random person donating an organ. I was his wife, the woman who'd been with him through thick and thin, the one who'd stood by him when life went sideways. And yet, here I was, in a hospital bed, wondering if I mattered at all. And yeah, I get it. Maybe Brad was stressed. Maybe he needed space to process things. But come on, 3 days of radio silence when your wife just donated a kidney? That's not just space. That's crickets. I finally got the courage to ask him again. Me. Brad, seriously, what's going on? I need to see you. I need to know you care. Brad. I'll be there soon. I promise. More empty promises. More silence. At this point, my mind was all over the place. I felt hurt, betrayed, and honestly, pretty damn angry. This wasn't the Brad I knew. The guy I knew would have dropped everything to be there, no matter what. The guy I loved would have held my hand through the worst of it. But instead, I was stuck alone, watching the clock, waiting for someone who never came. I couldn't help but wonder, did he really need the kidney that badly? Or was I just some kind of life support afterthought? Y'all, I thought Brad was my person, my teammate, the dude who was supposed to have my back. But nope. One of my mutual friends, Lisa, sent me a DM on Instagram with a screenshot that turned my world upside down. It was Brad, at brunch, with another woman. And not just any woman. No, this was his coworker, the one he'd been working late with for months. In the photo, they were holding hands. The caption, "Sunday brunch vibes with my favorite person." I literally couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking. I stared at the phone in disbelief, thinking I was losing my mind. I called Jess immediately. Me. You have to see this. Jess. No. No way. Brad? With who? Turns out, he'd been seeing this girl for months. And of course, his response was, "It's not what you think. she's just a friend. You're being dramatic. Dramatic? Bro, I gave you a kidney. I was floored, speechless, and yet somehow still expecting an explanation. But Brad's denial only confirmed my worst fears. Me, just a friend? Really? Brad? It's not a big deal. You're making it worse than it is. At that point, I didn't even know what to say. My entire world felt like it was crumbling. The guy who I thought loved me enough to keep me by his side, through thick and thin, had moved on without even trying to save face. I was the one who literally gave him a life, my life, and he couldn't even be bothered to visit me in the hospital. But now, he was casually out here brunching with another woman like nothing happened. I felt like the biggest fool. All those sappy Instagram posts, the tears, the "I owe you my life" speeches, were they just empty words? Here's the worst part. When I confronted Brad, he acted like it was no big deal, like I was the crazy one. The audacity. Brad, look, I never promised to be perfect. I'm human. I've got needs too. Me. Needs? Really? After everything? You couldn't even show up? Brad, I didn't think it was a big deal. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You didn't think it was a big deal? My life was literally hanging in the balance, and you're out here having needs like I'm some afterthought? At this point, I was done. Absolutely done. I wasn't about to sit around and beg for scraps of affection or loyalty. Hell no. At this point, I'm not gonna lie, I was full on in disbelief. I married a dude who needed me to save his life, and now he's out here treating me like I'm disposable? Nah, I wasn't about to stick around for that. I filed for divorce the next day. I mean, sure, I could have played the long game. I could have begged for his attention, cried about how I was the hero in this story. But honestly, that wasn't even the point anymore. It was never about a kidney. Well, okay, it was a little about the kidney, but it was more about trust and respect. And Brad? He trashed both of those like they were yesterday's memes. I went through all the motions, meeting with lawyers, filling out paperwork, trying to keep my cool, but inside I was seething. I couldn't understand how someone could be so oblivious to the gravity of what I'd done. I mean, a kidney. That's like one of your most valuable organs. And he couldn't even show up to my hospital bed? Deadass? The day we sat down to talk about the divorce, he tried to act like he didn't get it. Brad, this feels so sudden. I don't understand why you're doing this. Me, you don't understand? You don't understand? Brad, I gave you a kidney, a whole life-saving organ, and you couldn't even visit me in the hospital. You think I'm overreacting? Brad, I didn't think you'd be this upset. I literally had to take a deep breath to stop myself from losing it. Like, this upset? I'm this upset because I donated my kidney to save your life and you didn't even bother to visit? What kind of alternate universe were we living in? We were sitting there, Brad clueless as ever, asking me why I was so hurt. I swear I wanted to bang my head against the table. How could someone be this tone deaf? Me. Brad, let me break it down for you. You needed me to survive. I did my part. The least you could have done was show up, to say thank you? Brad. But I was going through a lot. Me. You were going through what? Oh, right. You were probably out having brunch with your side piece while I was recovering. There was no arguing with the blatant truth at that point. I knew. He knew, and honestly, I didn't even have the energy to drag this out. I signed the papers, took a deep breath, and walked out of that office. I was done. See, when you donate a kidney, there's this little clause in the fine print that says if the recipient screws you over, you legally cannot ask for it back. But what they didn't account for was me, someone who has an arsenal of petty energy and a wild imagination. Let's just say Brad's life didn't stay all sunshine and rainbows for too long. I wasn't just about to sit back and let him walk away unscathed. No cap, I was out for some revenge. Nothing crazy, but just enough to remind him that he messed with the wrong person. First things first, I set my socials on fire. I wanted everyone, friends, family, co-workers, to know exactly who Brad was. The guy who used me when he needed something, then ghosted when life got hard. The guy who skipped out on his wife in her time of need. I posted screenshots of the messages where Brad said he was tired and resting at home while I was in the hospital. The brunch photo? Oh yeah, that made it into a few stories too. I didn't tag him directly, but the indirect shade was more than enough. Me. When you realize some people are only there when it's convenient. Friend, who hurt you? Me. Let's just say I saved a life, but my husband couldn't save mine. Everyone started asking questions, and before I knew it, Brad's reputation was taking a nosedive. His coworkers, friends, family, they were all left wondering how someone could be so out of pocket. But that wasn't enough. I knew Brad would spin this into something else. So I took things to the next level. I reached out to that coworker of his. Yeah, her, the one he was brunching with. Me. Hey, I think we should chat. Her. Who is this? Me. Let's just say I'm his wife, the one he ghosted for you. Her response? Shocked. rightfully so. She had no idea Brad was still married, obviously because Brad had convinced her otherwise. I explained everything, from the kidney donation to his total lack of respect. Her. Wow, I had no clue. I feel terrible. Me. Save it. I'm done with him. But I'd appreciate you not being his sidekick. That was the end of that. The cherry on top? A few weeks later, Brad tried to come crawling back. Brad, I made a mistake. I was lost without you. Please just give me one more chance. I didn't even flinch. Me. One chance? Oh no, sweetie. You had your chance, and you lost it. I'm not a vengeful person by nature, but some lessons are best taught through consequences. And Brad? He was about to learn the hard way. At this point, Brad was begging, pleading, trying to convince me that he'd changed, that he'd learned from his mistakes. But honestly, I wasn't buying it. I wasn't interested in hearing empty apologies or promises of a better future when the past 3 months had been a nightmare. I blocked his number. I unfollowed him on social media, deleted every trace of him from my life. Because here's the thing. I don't have the energy to waste on people who don't value me. Not anymore. I couldn't even tell you what it was that broke inside of me. Maybe it was the betrayal, the endless ghosting, the fact that he couldn't even show up when I literally needed him most. Or maybe it was the realization that I wasn't just his wife anymore. I was a woman who had saved his life, and yet he treated me like I was disposable. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's that karma isn't always instant. Sometimes it takes a minute. And let me tell you, I was more than happy to sit back and wait. First, I started rebuilding myself, my confidence, my sense of worth. I dove into things that made me happy. Traveling, reconnecting with old friends, focusing on my career, anything that reminded me I wasn't defined by Brad or what he had or hadn't done. I spent months just living my life. Because the truth is, when you've been ghosted by someone you love, you realize there's nothing left to lose. You either rise or you crumble, and I wasn't about to crumble. Now, let's talk about revenge. I wasn't interested in playing dirty or getting into petty arguments with Brad. No, my revenge was about showing him and everyone what he had lost. I got my health back, got my life back, and let my success speak for itself. And trust me, the glow-up was real. I posted those photos from my travels. I smiled in places I never thought I'd smile again. I shared stories of how I was thriving. Every single post was a subtle, I'm better off without you message. And Brad? Well, he couldn't help but watch from the sidelines. His ego wouldn't let him unfollow me. He saw my glow up, he saw my confidence, he saw my happiness, and it was eating him alive. One day I heard from one of our mutual friends. Mutual friend. Brad's not doing so great. Me. Oh? What happened? Mutual friend. He's been struggling, hard, work's a mess, and he can't seem to figure out how to fix things. Apparently, he's blaming you for everything. Blaming me? Please. That's rich. Me. Sounds about right. Let him stew in his mess. I'm doing just fine. Meanwhile, Brad's life was a mess. Turns out the other woman didn't stick around either. No surprise there. The grass wasn't greener on the other side. It was just more of the same. And Brad? Well, he was stuck, miserable, reaping what he sowed. Meanwhile, I was living my best life, thriving, chasing my goals, unapologetically happy. It wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about showing myself and Brad that I didn't need him to be whole. Eventually, Brad reached out again. The text was weak, desperate. Brad, I've messed up. Can we talk? I stared at my phone, my heart completely indifferent. Me. There's nothing left to talk about. Let's be real. After everything, I didn't owe Brad anything. No explanations, no second chances, not a single ounce of my energy. But here's the kicker. Deep down, I knew I deserved closure. Not just to move on, but to understand how someone could treat me so poorly after I'd given them so much. At first, I debated ignoring his message altogether, letting him rot in the consequences of his own actions. But then, something gnawed at me. I wondered, did he even realize what he lost? Or was he just one of those people who never takes accountability? So, I decided to confront him. Not for closure, but for clarity. Because honestly, I needed to know if there was even a sliver of guilt inside him, or if he was just completely oblivious to the damage he'd done. The response wasn't immediate. I gave it a few hours before I even thought about replying. Me. What exactly are you looking for here, Brad? Brad, I just want to explain. I rolled my eyes. I had heard that line before. Me. Explain what? How you didn't visit me in the hospital? How you thought brunch with her was more important than showing up for your wife? Brad, I know I messed up. He trailed off. Me. You just what, Brad? You just realized you had a wife who gave you a kidney and still didn't come see her? That kind of realization? Brad, I didn't handle things the right way. I didn't know how to process everything. Me. Process what, Brad? That I saved your life? That you had a chance to be there for me and you chose her instead? Brad. I was confused. I wasn't thinking straight. At this point, I was beyond frustrated. Confused? thinking straight? Spare me. Me. Brad, let's get something clear. You weren't confused. You just didn't care. There it was. The hard truth. Right in his face. No way to spin it. No way to deny it. Brad, that's not fair. I do care. Me. You think you care. But the only person who really cared, who proved it, was me. And guess what? You lost me. He didn't respond right away. Probably stunned. Good. I could have kept ranting, kept throwing every ounce of my anger his way. But honestly, I didn't want to waste my energy on someone who had already shown his true colors. So I kept it short and sweet. Me. Good luck with everything, Brad. You lost something real. But that's on you. And with that, I hit send. Blocked his number. No drama, no mess, just peace. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about making him suffer. I'd already done the hard part, giving my kidney, healing, and moving forward. Now, my peace was all that mattered. Brad could stew in his regret, but that wasn't my problem. At the end of the day, I wasn't holding on to bitterness anymore. Sure, Brad messed up, but the truth was, I wasn't the same person I was when I donated my kidney. I had grown, evolved, and become someone stronger. Someone who didn't need his validation or his love to define my worth. That was the thing about giving so much of yourself. Sometimes, it forces you to take a hard look at what really matters. And what mattered to me wasn't Brad, wasn't the kidney, wasn't his regret. What mattered was my own sense of peace, my own ability to move forward, and to keep thriving no matter what life threw at me. When I first found out about Brad's betrayal, I was heartbroken. But heartbreak isn't forever. It fades. What's left is the person you become when you've had to piece yourself back together after the storm. And let me tell you, I rebuilt myself, stronger, wiser, and more self-assured than I ever thought possible. I leaned into the friendships and support systems I had ignored while I was in the thick of things. My friends who had been with me through thick and thin showed up. They reminded me that I wasn't alone in this. And honestly, I'll never forget that. I also leaned into the things that brought me joy. My career, my passions, and yes, even finding new love in ways I never expected. No one can prepare you for the freedom that comes from letting go of someone who didn't value you. It's liberating. In the months that followed, Brad became a distant memory, a faint blip from a chapter of my life I was no longer a part of. I stopped looking back. Because let's face it, holding on to the past is exhausting. I took the lessons Brad's actions taught me and ran with them. I learned to set boundaries. I learned to walk away from people who don't respect me, don't value me, and aren't willing to fight for what matters. I had seen what not to accept. And more importantly, I had seen what I deserved. One day I was out with friends, laughing about life. My phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without a second thought, but curiosity got the better of me. It was Brad. Brad, I see you're doing well. I just wanted to say, I'm really sorry for everything. I stared at the message for what felt like an eternity. My first instinct was to ignore it, block, delete. But instead, I took a deep breath. Me. Thanks. But I'm past all that now. And that was it. No more. No further conversation. Just closure. Here's the thing. Sometimes people realize too late what they lost. Sometimes they carry regret they'll never fully confront. But I'm not waiting around for apologies or closure from anyone. I found mine within myself. Let me tell you, I have zero regrets. None. The kidney wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning. Brad's mistakes, his lack of presence, his betrayal, that wasn't my burden to carry. I walked away with my dignity intact, with my peace restored, and with a life that no longer revolves around someone who thought they could take and never give back. Now, I'm thriving. And honestly, I don't care if Brad ever figures out what he lost, because I've already found what matters, my happiness. And with that, I'm free.